In a move that has sent shockwaves across West Africa, Ibrahim Traoré, the young and defiant leader of Burkina Faso, has agreed to engage with ECOWAS after a historic meeting with its chair, Julius Maada Bio. The same man who once demanded his immediate resignation, the man who led sanctions against his nation, now sits across the table, negotiating a future that once seemed impossible. What changed in these few tense hours? And how will this decision reshape the power balance in the Sahel region? For months, the world watched as ECOWAS attempted to enforce its will. Sanctions, ultimatums, and threats, all designed to pressure Traoré and his allies in Mali and Niger to step down. But he stood firm. His defiance was not just a personal stance, it became the voice of a region tired of outside pressure, a symbol of sovereignty in the face of overwhelming odds. And now, the unthinkable has happened. Traoré has agreed to dialogue. If you want to stay updated on every shocking twist in West Africa's political landscape, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. You don't want to miss a single moment of this unfolding story. Early this year, Julius Maada Bio assumed the chairmanship of ECOWAS, a position that carries immense responsibility and influence over West Africa's political landscape. Almost immediately, all eyes turned to Burkina Faso and its young military leader, Ibrahim Traoré. Bio's mandate was clear: restore regional stability, enforce democratic norms, and ensure that the bloc's authority could not be challenged. But from the very start, Traoré was not a leader to be dictated to. Sanctions, ultimatums, and threats of suspension were met with unwavering defiance. Traoré's message was simple, yet bold: Burkina Faso will chart its own course. ECOWAS cannot dictate the destiny of our people. The world watched as tensions escalated, a showdown between an experienced ECOWAS chair and a young, unyielding Sahel leader. Imagine this: a man who once asked you to step down, now sitting across the table asking for dialogue. For Bio, the challenge was monumental. Every decision would be scrutinized, not just by ECOWAS member states, but by the entire international community. Could he maintain authority while navigating a leader who had already defied the bloc's every demand? Bio's first few months as chair were anything but smooth. Borders were closed, trade froze, and tensions in the region reached unprecedented heights. Analysts debated: would Traoré finally give in, or would ECOWAS's credibility suffer a blow it could never recover from? Every news headline, every live broadcast seemed to scream the same question: who would blink first? And then came the first signs of change. Subtle, almost imperceptible. Reports emerged that Bio had requested a private, high-level meeting with Traoré, signaling a willingness to engage rather than simply dictate. This was the first crack in the wall of defiance, a glimmer of hope for dialogue, but also a gamble that could either restore ECOWAS's influence or backfire spectacularly. For viewers watching across West Africa, the stakes were clear. This was not just a meeting between two leaders, it was a test of power, strategy, and foresight. Who would bend? Who would rise? And who would define the future of the Sahel? But what happened behind closed doors in that historic meeting between Bio and Traoré would shock the entire Sahel region. For months, the world expected defiance, tension, and stalemate. Yet what unfolded next turned everything on its head. Stay tuned, because this is the moment that could redefine West Africa's power balance forever. To understand why this meeting between Maada Bio and Ibrahim Traoré is so shocking, we need to rewind to the events that led here. In 2025, Bio became the chair of ECOWAS, inheriting a bloc under pressure. Regional instability, coups, and rising tensions across the Sahel demanded immediate action. ECOWAS, once seen as a pillar of West African diplomacy, faced its biggest test in years. On the other side, Traoré had become the symbol of a new wave in West African leadership. Burkina Faso, under his rule, had defied ECOWAS sanctions, ignored ultimatums, and refused to step down. For many in the region, he was no longer just a military leader. He was a voice of sovereignty, resilience, and defiance. And that defiance had rattled even the most seasoned diplomats. The stakes could not have been higher. ECOWAS needed to assert authority, but heavy-handed action risked deepening regional divides. Traoré needed to defend his position without isolating his country internationally. Every move was scrutinized, every statement, every report, every leaked message. One misstep could ignite tensions across borders and threaten the fragile stability of the Sahel. As months of standoff dragged on, whispers began circulating of private communications between Bio and Traoré. Analysts speculated, would ECOWAS soften its approach? Was Traoré reconsidering his hardline stance? The world waited for a sign, a moment that would break the deadlock, and then the meeting happened. Behind closed doors, two leaders, each with their own vision, sat down in what many describe as the most consequential encounter of the year for West Africa. The eyes of West Africa were on Ouagadougou as Julius Maada Bio arrived in the Burkina Faso capital for a visit that many had long anticipated. The ECOWAS Chair, who had called for Traoré and other Sahel leaders to step down, was now entering the territory of the very leader he had once pressured. Every step, every handshake, every glance was being recorded and scrutinized. Footage of his arrival shows a mixture of ceremony and tension. Security forces lined the streets, officials greeted him with protocol, and yet there was an undeniable undercurrent of expectation. The sense that history was about to be written in these moments. The world watched. Would this meeting mark a thaw, a confrontation, or a careful balancing act? Bio's visit was highly strategic. He came not just as a representative of ECOWAS, but as a diplomat tasked with opening lines of communication, gauging Traoré's intentions, and exploring whether dialogue could replace the months of standoff, sanctions, and ultimatums. Traoré, known for his unwavering stance, received him with measured caution, every gesture sending signals to both local and international audiences. No official announcement followed the arrival. No sweeping statements were made. What we do know is that discussions took place. Private, discreet, and pivotal. Both leaders are experienced, aware that every word, every decision would ripple across the region. For ECOWAS, it was a chance to restore influence. For Traoré, an opportunity to navigate pressure without losing face or control. While the outcome of these talks remains unclear, the significance cannot be understated. A meeting of this nature, between a young, defiant leader and the chair of the regional bloc, sends a powerful message. The Sahel is negotiating its future, and the old patterns of unilateral pressure are giving way to careful diplomacy. As Bio departed, analysts and citizens alike speculated, what signals did this meeting send? How will ECOWAS and the Sahel states move forward? One thing is certain, Ouagadougou witnessed a moment that could influence West Africa's balance of power for months to come. If you want to see every development from this historic visit, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications now. You won't want to miss what happens next. News of Julius Maada Bio's visit to Ouagadougou spread quickly across the Sahel. From Bamako to Niamey, from Accra to Dakar, citizens, analysts, and political commentators were glued to every report, tweet, and news clip. The region was buzzing with speculation. What was discussed behind closed doors? Did this signal a thaw in relations, or simply another chapter in the ongoing standoff? Social media erupted with reactions. Supporters of Traoré hailed the visit as a sign that the young leader was holding firm, engaging on his terms, and asserting Burkina Faso's sovereignty. Critics questioned whether dialogue could compromise regional autonomy or lead to hidden concessions. Every hashtag, every post, seemed to reflect the uncertainty and anticipation gripping the Sahel. Political analysts described the visit as a delicate balancing act. ECOWAS needed to restore credibility after months of stalled sanctions and limited influence, while Traoré needed to navigate pressure without appearing to yield. Each side measured words carefully, understanding that perception could be as important as the substance of their discussions. In Burkina Faso, ordinary citizens debated what this meant for their daily lives. Would trade restrictions ease? Would regional cooperation bring stability to a region that had seen too many disruptions? The answers remained unclear, but one fact was undeniable. This meeting had captured the imagination and attention of an entire region. Even international observers were watching closely. From Washington to Paris, the UN to African Union headquarters, diplomats analyzed the footage of Bio's arrival and speculated on the discussions that followed. The meeting, while private, had immediate implications for how ECOWAS would operate in the months to come. For viewers at home, one message was clear. The Sahel region was witnessing a moment of uncertainty, tension, and potential transformation. And as the world watched, the question remained: what would be the next move? For ordinary citizens, political analysts, and international observers alike, one question dominated every conversation. What would happen next? Would this meeting mark the start of genuine dialogue, or was it only the calm before another storm? The Sahel region was watching, holding its breath, because the next move could change the balance of power in West Africa forever. Bio's visit to Ouagadougou is more than a diplomatic formality. It's a potential turning point for ECOWAS and the entire Sahel region. For a bloc that prides itself on enforcing stability and democratic norms, engaging with a leader who has resisted sanctions presents both opportunities and risks. One key implication is the shifting perception of ECOWAS authority. If dialogue with Traore succeeds, it could signal a more flexible, pragmatic approach to regional diplomacy, one that emphasizes negotiation over coercion. This could restore credibility and influence for the bloc, showing that even the most defiant leaders can be brought to the table through strategy rather than confrontation. However, there's a delicate balance to maintain. Too much concession could embolden other leaders to resist ECOWAS mandates, potentially weakening the bloc's standing. The young leaders in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are closely observing every move, calculating how far they can assert sovereignty while remaining part of the regional framework. For Burkina Faso, Traore's engagement with Bio sends a subtle but powerful signal. The country can maintain independence while participating in regional dialogue. It demonstrates that the Sahel states are not merely passive actors subject to sanctions. They are active players shaping the future of West African politics. International observers are also watching closely. The European Union, the United Nations, and neighboring countries are keenly interested in whether this engagement will stabilize the region or simply postpone deeper conflicts. The decisions made in Ouagadougou could ripple far beyond Burkina Faso's borders, influencing regional trade, security cooperation, and the balance of power in West Africa for years to come. Ultimately, the implications of this visit are about more than diplomacy. They are about strategy, perception, and power. Both Bio and Traore know that the eyes of the Sahel and the world are upon them. Every word, every gesture, every decision will be analyzed, debated, and remembered as part of a defining moment in West African politics. And yet, even after this historic encounter, one question looms larger than all others. What will the next steps be? Will dialogue lead to lasting cooperation, or will tensions flare again as regional leaders test the limits of ECOWAS authority? The historic encounter between Julius Maada Bio and Ibrahim Traoré leaves the Sahel region at a crossroads. While no official agreements were announced, the meeting itself signals a potential shift in how ECOWAS interacts with the bloc's most defiant leaders. Analysts suggest that this could open the door to a new era of diplomacy in West Africa, one driven by dialogue, strategy, and mutual recognition, rather than sanctions and ultimatums. For Traoré, this is an opportunity to assert leadership on his own terms. Engaging with ECOWAS without conceding full control allows him to maintain credibility at home while navigating pressure from the international community. It also positions Burkina Faso as a key player in shaping future negotiations among Sahel states. For ECOWAS, the stakes are equally high. The bloc must demonstrate that it can influence regional leaders without undermining its authority. How it handles this delicate situation could define its reputation for years to come. Will other Sahel leaders follow Traoré's example and engage in dialogue rather than confrontation? Or will they test the limits of the bloc's patience? The implications extend beyond politics. Regional security, trade, and economic stability all hinge on how these discussions evolve. A cooperative approach could pave the way for joint security initiatives, easing of sanctions, and stronger regional partnerships. Conversely, missteps could reignite tensions, deepen divisions, and challenge ECOWAS's ability to maintain cohesion among its members. The world is watching closely, and the Sahel region remains on edge. Every next move, every statement, and every diplomatic gesture carries weight. One thing is certain, the events in Ouagadougou are not just about a single meeting. They are about the future of West African diplomacy, power, and leadership. As the dust settles, one question lingers. Will this encounter mark the beginning of a new chapter in regional cooperation, or is it simply a pause in an ongoing power struggle? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear, the Sahel region, and indeed all of West Africa, will never be the same again. The visit of Julius Maada Bio to Ouagadougou and his meeting with Ibrahim Traoré has left the Sahel region watching closely. No agreements were announced, yet the dialogue itself sends a powerful message. West African leaders are exploring new ways to navigate power, sovereignty, and cooperation. The outcome remains uncertain, but the impact is undeniable. One thing is clear: the events in Ouagadougou mark a pivotal moment in West African politics. The region is at a crossroads, and the next moves by Traoré, Bio, and other Sahel leaders could redefine the balance of power for years to come. If you want to stay updated on every twist and turn in this story, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next in the Sahel. Want to catch up on the story that started it all? Check out our previous video on Bio's surprising move to visit Traoré. It's linked on our channel.